Good morning, good morning. I see 3 of you are already watching. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you had an amazing weekend. Um, Today's topic is going to be about how you got into the aquarium hobby. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I'm going to call it my aquarium origin story and how I got involved in aquariums as a hobbyist. First, I'm going to show you my fancy, awesome little coffee mug today. I got this from Cute Fish's Etsy page. She's got a freshwater version and a saltwater version. So I appreciate all of you who are watching this live, but also the people who are watching this on repeat. We really do value talking to you. Hey, thank you for joining again. I appreciate it. We really do appreciate you tuning in and commenting and engaging with us. You guys are the ones that make my job awesome, so I love hearing from you all the time. In fact, I learned from you. A couple weeks ago we were talking about test kits and somebody mentioned the Hannah test kits and how awesome they are. Actually, a couple somebodies mentioned how awesome the Hannah test kits are. And so, like I was saying, I work as a biologist at my other job, and I actually got to use one of the Hannah checker kits this week. I'm amazed at how easy they are. Like, y'all were right. But, so, I was complaining and grumping last week because some of my test kits suck. These 2 came in the mail. I'm still waiting on a pH. I had a pH pin tester that I thought spent way too much time fighting with to get it to calibrate, and I'm like, I can't get it to calibrate that easily, even following the instructions. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to trust the pH that it gives me for this tank, because, well, I don't want nothing to happen to Frank, so gotta make sure pH is good. So before I get to telling you about origin stories and stuff, I'll tell you a little bit about Reef Cell. I know I've talked about this before, but I've been using it in my coral tank, and the results are amazing. I've heard a lot of people say that the results are amazing. I know it's gonna sound biased coming from me, but I got pictures. They're not the best. I haven't figured out how to do the filters with the phone to make them actually look the way they do, but you can definitely see the growth in diameter on some of my zoas. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Somebody just commented about how they started using the probiotics. The probiotics is awesome. Frank loves probiotics. It's just a really, really good food for the fish, but also it's going to help out the phosphates, keeping those down in the tank too. So double whammy, all sorts of excitement. Oh, I see. Let's see if I can tilt this down. My hermit crab changed shells last night. Boom. So I have a red spotted hermit crab. This is him down here. He's got a whole bunch of shells. Actually, you can see this is one, and there's one back here. When I first got him, he was mislabeled in the bin with like red leg hermits. And I was like, oh, I'll take him. And he's been switching shells and growing ever since. I'm curious to know, I just saw it pop up that I assume phosphate eating bacteria is the reason you started using it. Have you actually noticed a difference in your phosphates? I feed it all the time on this tank, but Frank has been kind enough to destroy the LED light bars on the top, so and I keep the blinds and the rest of the house closed usually, so I really don't have that much algae or phosphate problems. He just likes the food. So, Reef Cell. This is the smaller of the reef cells. Yay! Thank you for joining. It is great for filter feeding corals. We also have a larger size. That's going to be good for the slower eating fish. One of the really great things about Reef Cell is that it's water stable. It'll hang out in the water column. It's not gonna, like, you don't just put it in and then it gets, like, sinks to the bottom. It'll hang out and float around for a while. Let's see. I'm gonna open it and try not to make a mess, because it is a powder, so it's very easy to make a mess. So, this is what it looks like. It's a powder. It also comes with an instruction book, and it's going to have a little plastic spoon in there to help you measure it out. It's a very small amount that you're going to use in the tank. Each of the spoons when I say spoon, it's really not. It's just it's like a small little tiny smidge of food. It's good for 30 gallons. So you can imagine, like, this whole thing is gonna last a while. And I was saying on Instagram, you know, people sometimes complain like, oh, food's so expensive. Like, I know how much other foods cost. Like, I go to the local fish store. But you know, if you think about, yes, it might be expensive, but considering how long this is gonna last you, and it's engineered nutrition for your aquarium, like it's made just for your fish. It's got the same sort of formulation. So like when you go get the gel caps, like if you have to take a medicine like Sudafed or something like that, and you go to the store and you get those gel caps, this is used with the same technology. It's microencapsulated just like those gel caps are. The nutrients are inside like little microscopic gelatin, or not, like algae gels, and so they're gonna get to your corals. It's not just gonna precipitate out. All right, here we go. I keep seeing comments and they disappear real fast. I started last week. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got 3 different food. I don't feed probiotics every day, but probiotics is the one when I put it in the tank he goes nuts for. I feed Thera A, probiotics, and Algae Max. Something not very many people know about cowfish. They're algae eaters, like big hardcore algae eaters. So I always like to throw some Algae Max in there for him. Well, obviously I've got tangs too, so they're gonna go crazy for the Algae Max as well. Actually, this is one of the better views that you've had in a while. So this back here, it looks terrible. That's my quarantine tank. I've got my clownfish that's in there. She's been recovering from uranema for almost a little over a month now, and I'm really excited. I wasn't expecting it to last as long. I know that sounds terrible, but I haven't encountered uranema and had good outcomes. So the fact that my clownfish is still alive is pretty exciting. I've been dosing Quick Cure every day. Quick Cure is a malachite green and a formalin-based medication. It's pretty strong, but it doesn't stay in the water very long. It's probably about 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours max. So I dose it in the morning and dose it in the evening. And in the meantime, I feed Thera A to the clownfish, who just like gobbles it up. So knock on wood, I'm super thankful that the clownfish is still around. But now it's time for origin stories. Yay! While I'm talking about mine, please start typing, sharing out your origin stories. I know a couple of you were in Instagram, and I got to hear some origin stories. I always think it's fun and exciting to like hear how everybody got into fish keeping. I know it's a little bit different for all of us. So I'm losing my voice today. Let's find this in just the right height. So when I was in college, I guess I should go back before college. When I was growing up, I had a fish tank. It had goldfish in it, but it also had some toads. It was one of those cool ones with like the little waterfall going down in it. So I had fish that lived in like the pond section of it, but I also had toads, like brown spotted toads that I would catch and put in there. So growing up, that's kind of what I had. I had goldfish when I was little that, okay, it was I looked at it, but my parents took care of it. And then when I got to college, you're not allowed to have pets in the dorms. They don't have anything against aquariums and fish tanks. So one day I was at Walmart, I see like the 10-gallon all-in-one setup, and so I picked that up, and I go to the local or the pet shop, and I see like these really fancy tailed guppies and mollies, and like, oh, I'll get those. I like them. They got a lot of pretty colors, and next thing I know, they're breeding in the tank, and I enjoyed going and watching like, oh, look at the little babies, and trying to figure out exactly when they were gonna have babies, and like sequestering the babies aside so that they could survive. So there was that, and then I would spend I was in school for marine biology, so I had an interest in fish anyway, and I would spend a lot of time at the local pet store. And one day when I went in, they had these little South American puffers, maybe like this long. They're not super big, maybe a couple inches max. They're black and yellow striped, the cutest little freshwater puffers. They're from the Amazon. And and I brought one home, and that, boom, it completely changed my life when it came to aquarium keeping. That little fish just, I don't know, it made me think about things a little bit differently, and like the stuff that I was learning about in school, like lateral lines and stuff. Like, lateral line is kind of how fish are able to pick up stimulus in their environment and react to it, kind of like almost like our ears. So, I would learn about that in school, and then I would go home and I like play music. Hey, thanks for joining. I'm not sure how to tag people on here because I was going to tag you on Instagram. I know I tagged you on Instagram, tagged you on YouTube. I tagged you on Instagram. But so I would learn about things like the lateral line in ichthyology class, and then you'd come home and you'd play music, and you would see I'd see a little fish, Pookie, like swim from whatever he was doing in the back of the tank and like come up and just kind of like swim along back and forth, and just like, oh, like he can hear that, like he interacts. It's not just a fish in a tank. Like they have personality. Like it's, and I would go to bed at night, and the tank was right next to the bed, and so I like turn the lights off, and like little fish would just like lay on the bottom, kind of like go back and forth with the flow of the water. And in the morning, he'd just be up, like ready to greet me back and forth in front of the tank. So he really just spurred my curiosity and made me want to learn more. And from then, it just it exploded. It went from 1 tank to 3 tanks. And then I was in an apartment on the 3rd floor, having to haul 5-gallon water jugs up and down stairs. I'm just like, I was starting to get burned out. And about that time, I moved again and got Frank. Every time I say this, I got Frank. And Frank is like nowhere to be found, even though Frank is always like hanging out over here. So I moved again, and I got Frank, the cowfish. And he just, boom, I was sucked and pulled right back in again, and I fell in love with it. And I went from getting ready, like wanting to get rid and like shut down my tanks, to having 8 tanks, moved across the country again, got a couple more jobs in the aquarium hobby. Like, I just went from working at a local fish store, now I'm a biologist, aquarist at an aquarium in town. And so like every time I usually do stuff for work, like I get re-inspired and reinvigorated with the hobby, and like you learn a little bit, it gets a little bit more technical, or you learn something that you didn't know. Like I was telling you in the beginning of this, I had never used the Hannah checkers before, mostly because I couldn't quite justify the cost. Like, I really don't use them that often. For a while I was just taking the tests, or taking water samples when I would go into work and just testing them at work, so I didn't really need to have it. But like, I used the Hannah test kit at work the other day, and it's really, really cool. So it's exciting. Oh, here, yay. We had a freshwater community tank when I was in elementary school and watched the fish for hours. Yep. Let's see, right? My dad has a service shop. Owned an aquatic service. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So now it's completely your life. It's I'm losing my voice this morning. It's funny how like I'll talk to people at work, and they're like, "So what do you do in your free time?" And I'm like, "I go home and I've got fish." Well, what do you? I'm like, "No, I really love fish. Like that's if I'm not doing new life stuff, I'm at work taking care of fish, and usually when I'm not, I'm sitting there doing stuff for waterlogged, and like I'm learning about new things that are going on in the industry or that are happening in the environment that are impacting fish and how the world around us is changing. So it's like completely 110% of my life. I don't know if you ever get like Harkins. I don't know if you ever get burned out on fish in aquariums, but it's definitely a labor of love. I'm gonna hop off, but I will probably see you next week. I might not be here, I might be at a different location, we'll have to see. I think I'm gonna go do some filming. I just have to look at me. And I would love to hear anybody who has watching this now, waterlogged now,